people getting admitted here? I think we're getting close, guys. Another minute and we'll start. Okay. We're getting close to 5 minutes after start time. So if other folks, stragglers come in, Jack, please admit them. But I'm gonna get this meeting started and get going. Um, First of all, if you are unfamiliar with me, my name is Mark Brown. I work both for the Claude Moore Charitable Foundation, and I also happen to be president of the Moorefield Station Conservancy. We have a board of 5 members with the Conservancy. And I think all of you basically know what we do, but if you're a resident and you're new to Moorefield, we are the organization that kind of sits on top of all the HOAs, and we approve things like uses, designs, all that kind of stuff in Moorefield. So we do a lot of things. We also obviously take assessments each month from all of the residents and all of the apartments and all of the commercial activity that's going on in Moorefield, and we use that to upkeep the area. So more on that a little bit later. But while we're getting going here, let me just make an announcement. I said it earlier, but let me repeat it for those of you that joined later. I've unmuted only the directors because the directors are the ones that are going to have to speak occasionally during this meeting and vote on several items that we have to vote on. Everybody else is muted and will remain muted for the duration of the meeting. However, we do want you to be able to participate. And if you have any questions that come up during this presentation that you would like questions answered, as long as they're agenda related, go to the chat room and put them in there. We will check that at the end of the meeting, and I'll be happy to answer any questions I can as long as they're agenda related. If they're not agenda related, feel free to email me later after the meeting is over, and I'll be happy to get back to you if and when I can. So let me just go ahead for, I know Will Walsh, the attorney for the Conservancy, is taking minutes. Let me just go through the folks that are on the line that are directors. There are a bunch of people that are residents that are also in the attendee list. I won't mention all of their names because I'll probably mispronounce a couple, and I don't want to do that. But let me go through the directors that are present. Kayla Fox, John Troy, Ron Schneider, Rosemarie Lindor, Mark Coletta, myself, Guy Gravitt, Gail Morgan, and Jack Vega. We also have Mark Bailey joining us from First Service. Mark Bailey, First Service, works as our sort of money manager. When we move money around in various places and various, money market accounts and such, they give us an accurate reporting of our finances each month, and we make decisions based upon that. So Mark communicates with all of the HOA managers and make sure that they have everything that you need if you were to sell or to buy in Moorefield. The information that your HOA managers give you is based in large part on the information that Mark conveys to them. So he's joining us as well. Today, the board's going to be voting on 3 items. The first is ratifying the minutes from our 2023 meeting a year ago. The second is election of Conservancy officers. And the third is the approval of the Conservancy budget. So let me do this before we do anything else. Let me share my screen with you. Let's see if we can do this. And let me widen this, and you tell me, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Very good. All right, this is a list of our board of directors. All of those folks that I mentioned before are contained within this slide. This gives you a little bit of information as to what everybody does, what their role is with the Conservancy and or with the foundation. So let me, before I get too much further down the line here, let me ask, have all of the directors had an opportunity, it was in the board package that was sent out, to look at the minutes from the 2023 meeting? You don't all have to answer, but if there are any questions with regard to the minutes, please speak up now or forever hold your peace. Okay, seeing no questions, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the 2023 meeting?
So moved.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, we've ratified the minutes from the 2003 meeting. Okay, very good. The second item is proposed officers. What we are proposing this year is just to keep the officers in the same roles that they were in last year. I was the president and treasurer last year, handled the finances for the Conservancy. Jack was the secretary. No one's been disbarred or disciplined, so I think we did a decent job last year. We'd like to do the same thing for you all this year. So any discussion with regard to the proposal to keep the officers the same as last year?
No.
Okay. Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the proposed officers for 2025?
Aye.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. I think we have officers for 2025. Very, very good. All right. Here's the agenda. Okay. For those of you that are residents, you might not have seen this before, but this was included in the board of directors packet. This is the schedule of things that we're going to go through, and we have a lot of updates for you, and I want to kind of get into those quickly, just because we have a lot of things. Actually, let me back up just for a second. Before I move forward, let me just tell you that we like to let everybody know in these meetings when we have a permission or a request from a developer, something that kind of affects all of Moorefield that everyone will see. When we get requests to make changes to design, color, elsewhere, or otherwise, we like to let everybody know about it. And this year we had two such requests. The first one was from TGM's request to change the exterior color of their apartment building. They proposed to change it to kind of a lighter green color, and the Conservancy approved that. So you probably will have seen the fact that they changed the exterior color from a cream or a white color to a kind of a light green color. The other proposal that we got was from Oslo to approve their plans for a gas station and convenience store just south of where the Harris Teeter is located. And this is the elevation that they supplied to us. And that also passed. So this is something that I'm assuming they'll be requesting a special use exception for, and may have already begun. But this is something that the Conservancy approved, just so that you guys are aware of it. Other things that have happened during the course of the year that I think are notable is Grandmore Park was completed by Toll earlier this year. Now, I had mentioned earlier, some of you weren't on the line yet, that we had hoped by this time in 2024, and for those of you that were in on this meeting last year, you probably heard me mention this, that we hoped that the Grandmore Park would be conveyed back to the Conservancy at this point in time, because that's what eventually is going to happen. But what wound up occurring is Toll ran into some delays because they want to do it all at one time. They're conveying the park, the trail system that I'll be talking about later on, that will all come back to the Conservancy, as well as part of the Stream 6 restoration. All of those things have been completed. The problem was that some of these trails, the public use easements that are in the land records in Loudoun County, didn't match up entirely with the as-builts, like where the trails actually wound up. They were slightly off in a couple of locations. My understanding is what they're doing is they're now going back, because they can't change the trails too much given where they are located. So what they're going to do is go back to the county, ask the county to vacate the public use easements that don't correspond precisely with where the trails are, and ask them to be relocated so that the public use easement falls right where the trail wound up falling. And once that happens, my understanding is they'll be able to get off a bond. And once they get off a bond, they'll be able to convey it to us. We hope that will happen sometime early to mid 2025. Until that point in time, the park is done. It's open to the public, but the Conservancy is not yet maintaining it. Now, Toll was kind enough, John Crowder, we'll give him credit. John Crowder was kind enough to share with us a drone video of Grand Moore Park. Now, before I show it to you, I do all these features here you'll see, but this area that I'm circling with my cursor right here should be of particular interest to many of you. It is to us at the Conservancy, because what we wound up doing with the Conservancy's help is we set up this memorial section to Dr. Moore. It has a picture of him, three pictures of him at different stages of his life, and it has stories of how he founded the Conservancy, his education, what he did for a living, and there's a quote from Senator Warner on one of them too about his land acquisitions and the giving that he did during the course of his lifetime. So keep an eye open for these things. I'm going to start this up, and I'll try to maximize it. So just bear with me for a moment. It's less than a minute long. It doesn't take long, but it's pretty cool. Hold on just a second. Let me maximize this first. All right, here we go. All right. So it's about 4.5 acres of land with various, features to it that you can readily see. But it's open for people walking their dogs, throwing frisbees, kids playing on the playground, etc. So anyway, that one turned out very well, and we hope to have that in the Conservancy's possession sometime early to mid next year. Let me talk a little bit about construction that is ongoing at Moorefield. Um, a little while ago, we sold D9, actually almost 2 years ago, we sold D9 to Brambleton. Part of the contract that they entered into is they were to build Centergate Drive, which is in pink, and Charitable Street, which is in green. And they were also to complete the regional trail system that's in orange or yellow and blue here. If you go out there and drive around, you'll see that essentially these roads are complete. The contract requires them to be completed by this December, but I think they were already base paved. I think they're actually complete now. They probably will not be drivable until VDOT adopts them into the system, which could be a little bit of time. But much of the trail is open. I know Brambleton has a bridge in this location right here that they are still working with VDOT to get permission to put in. But as soon as that is done, we anticipate the trail system will come back to the Conservancy sometime, most likely next year. And these two roads, which will provide a lot more entryway and exit avenues to Moorefield, should be open this next year. Okay. Let's talk about E8 a little bit. Mark Coletta and Avinton earlier this year bought E8 from us, and I'll show you a map to show you approximately where that is if you guys didn't already know. But this is the elevation of what we expect to see on E8 when the 5-story luxury apartment building is completed. It's well underway. They started literally, I think we settled with them on a Friday and they started moving dirt on a Monday, if I'm not mistaken. So they were very much well along before we even settled with them. And Mark Coletta was kind enough to share with us this drone video of the progress. Now, this is not, this week. This was taken like a week and a half ago, but I think it shows you a lot of the progress that they're making. Oops, sorry. I was let someone into the meeting and it paused. The big structure in the middle there is the parking garage. Okay. So this is what they're building on E8. I also want to, and the foundation and the conservancy are both very um, pleased with the progress that Aventon is making on this apartment, and they must be as well because they approached us about purchasing E13, which is just north of E8, and I'll show you on a map in a second. And they've approached us, and we actually just yesterday executed a contract that will not go to settlement until early 2026, but will have them building a 7-story luxury apartment complex on E13. And these are the elevations and sort of the site plan that they have provided to us. So now, it may not look exactly like this in all fairness. Mr. Coletta, Mark gave us a couple of different possible looks to the exterior, but we like them all. I just put this one in here because this was the one that we cared for the most. But it may not look exactly like this, but you get the idea. It's going to be 1 story taller than what they're building on E8 currently. So we're excited about that because on E8 they're building a 425 unit luxury apartment complex, and this one's going to be even larger because it's going to be 1 story taller. All right, let me talk to you a little bit about D2 and what's going on with regard to, people ask me all the time, when you can bring commercial to Moorefield, what's going on with commercial at Moorefield. I mentioned last year that we had just entered into a lease agreement with Dash In to build a gas station slash convenience store on D2. That was put on hold for a short period of time only because with the zoning change that occurred, we wanted to make sure that we were vested in a variety of ways before we let them apply for their special use permit. But that has run its course, and the elevations that they had given us that were approved, that basically the Conservancy approved of, is what I'm showing you right now. Now, this is just an artist's rendition. This part of this plan right here was for a car wash. We didn't allow that. We don't have room for that because there are going to be other commercial structures that are going to be on this portion of D2. But these two structures here have been approved. And these two structures is what I would expect to see year and a half, 2 years down the road. They have just started applying for their special use permit, which should take a year to a year and a half to approve if everything goes as planned. So that's where we are on D2. We're talking with other folks about D2, but nothing to report as of yet. Now, you probably have noticed that over here, I'm moving my cursor to the right side here, the connection between Clawmore Drive and Loudoun County Parkway, there's a new signal going in. Here's a picture of it. D2 is over here. The foundation, this signal became warranted. The foundation was proffered to put it in, and they've just finished putting in all of the structures. Now there will be a turn lane here eventually, but they've made a lot of progress on this. Our contractor did a pretty darn good job, and they did it pretty quickly. And we expect, generally speaking, now there could be delays with VDOT, but we generally expect it should be blinking within the next month or so, generally speaking. All right, let me talk a little bit about ongoing maintenance that we have at Moorefield. Several of you that were on the call last year probably recognize this map. Everything in blue are sidewalks, street trees, and grass that the Conservancy takes care of. Okay, we've contracted with HLS to do all of those things for us throughout the course of the year. We also have contracted with HLS to remove snow and ice from these sidewalks in the wintertime. They did that last year. We've contracted with them to do it again this year. This is Grandmore Park, okay, which will come back to us hopefully early to mid next year. These are the trail systems. Again, we anticipate receiving those early to mid next year. And I didn't mention this before, but each of these areas that I'm identifying with my cursor here are landscaping that was done, actually it stops here, by Brambleton. They put in $750,000 worth of landscaping around this trail to keep it looking really, really nice. And once that comes back to the Conservancy, that will be the Conservancy's responsibility to maintain. So it will be costly, but it'll keep the place looking very, very nice.
We need rain.
So, yeah, go ahead.
We need rain.
Yes, we
Pray
do need
for
rain.
We need rain.
We do need rain. Yes, I agree.
Been a long time.
I agree. But until we get rain, Brambleton's going to be out there watering these suckers to make sure that they continue to look good until they're our responsibility. But I agree with you, Guy. We do need some rain. All right, let's talk about what's to come, what's going to be happening here shortly. First of all, let me just identify, here's where E8 is, where Brambleton is currently building. Here is E13, where we have just entered into a contract for them to purchase this 3.5 acres and build a 7-story apartment complex. What's going on down here, let me just do it one piece at a time. In January, this piece right here, E2, and this piece right here, D6, will basically go out for bids. Now, between the two, we're going to move the boundary line here to about halfway through D6 and offer additional entitlements for housing here. Between this parcel and the top half of D6, they could a developer could potentially build 290 multifamily units. And the infrastructure that would come along with that deal would be to build Midmore all the way down to Loudoun County Parkway to put in a traffic signal when it's warranted by VDOT, which who knows when that could be. It depends on how much traffic comes through here. And also to build this street right here, which is called Massey Street. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Massey Street. Massey Street is going to be a private street. It is proffered. So we do have to put it in. But when Massey Street is built, after it is completed, it doesn't go into the VDOT system. Massey Street's one of the only streets in Moorefield that will actually come back to the Conservancy. Part of the reason it's planned that way is because we anticipate commercial will be on either side of Massey Street. We wanted to have control on what it looked like and how it was built. We can determine how wide and how narrow and everything else in between. So I mentioned this to you because for now, we're not raising assessments, and I hope not to be raising assessments for some time. But the advent of Massey Street and Massey Street coming back into be the responsibility of the Conservancy to repair potholes, to resurface it, to repair it. That's a bit of a different ball game compared to taking care of some street trees and sidewalks. The reserve study, once this comes back to the Conservancy, will determine how much money each year we have to set aside to take care of potential repairs to a road. And when that happens, we'll have to reevaluate where we are. Give me just a second. Now, I will say, everyone always wants to know, well, what about, assessments? When and if are they ever going to go up? Right now, the Conservancy is doing fine. We'll talk about our budget in just a minute. That's the next slide that's coming up. But if and when we get to a point, and this would be a game changer, that we need to make sure that there is money on hand. And when I say money on hand, what I mean is this. I don't want to be in a situation where we're responsible for upkeep of a road. We don't have the money on hand and we have to go out and raise assessments dramatically. I don't ever want to be in a situation to do that or having to do that. So instead, when we know that this is coming and we do a reserve study, we know we have to put away each month and each year to take care of it. I want to make sure that we stay ahead so that if we do raise assessments, we can just keep them the same for quite a while. So, and looking at the way things are building out in Moorefield, I would just tell you the way that the thought process is going right now. We're out of townhomes. Okay, most of these things that Toll is putting up in Metro Walk are condominiums. These most likely will be condominiums. So the number of condominiums in the area is outpacing townhomes dramatically. Now, we made a change a year ago to these buildings that were condominiums that actually were almost as big as townhomes were being built differently than the other condominiums. Initially, the thought process was we'd have a bunch of condo flats in Moorefield. That would be a lot less square footage than, say, the size of a townhouse. And as a result, we were charging them $5 a door. What we decided to do was make all of the condominium fees the same, even if there were buildings that were the size of a townhouse. So I will tell you in all fairness, if in fact we got to raise more money to take care of this, or perhaps, the upkeep of the parks and the trails and stuff is more than we are contemplating currently, and we need to raise assessments, I would, just as a first line matter, most likely, I think you would expect to see the condominium assessments go up a little bit because they're being charged a lot less than any and all of the townhomes right now. So just out of fairness, because almost all of them are the same square footage, that would probably be the first thing that you would see occur. Now, it's not happening this year. We're not raising assessments this year. My hope is it won't be necessary next year. But if this deal goes through, there'll be about a 24-month time limit for whoever buys E2 and D6 to build these roads. And that's a time frame within which we're going to need to prepare for the Conservancy taking over Massey Street. Are there any questions about any of that? Okay. Let me talk a little bit about commercial, because there were questions last year in the chat room about commercial, and I think everybody that's a resident out here would love to see a whole bunch of commercial coming. Well, we've talked about Dash In down here. That's coming. We anticipate that's coming. When this is done, the infrastructure will be there for the rest of D2, or at least most of it will be there for the rest of D2. We are talking with folks about D2, and we've actually been approached by some of the best commercial developers in Northern Virginia. And we're having some discussions with them. They would like to bring commercial to the southern half of D6 and all of D7. So we're listening. We're listening. We're having discussions. I will tell you, just out of just for your own knowledge, because CMCF is a charity. It's a private foundation. The rules are different with how we do commercial stuff. We can't move dirt, essentially. We would have to partner up with somebody else that can, or have to do long-term leases with someone else who would then do the commercial building at Moorefield. So just keep those things in mind, because they do slow the process of bringing commercial down a little bit. But I can also tell you, in the way of being positive, when E8 is done and E13 is done, this area up here is zoned in part for commercial activity. And I suspect the telephone calls that Guy gets for that won't stop once these are full. Okay, so let's move on for the moment. Oh, hold on just a second. It's not letting me. Oh, there we go. Let me move back. Okay, here we go. Before I move on to this slide, let me preface this by saying this area right here, D3, this whole area where Lake Wilson was and D3 has been conveyed and was a year or two ago to the county. County owns D3. Once E8, the permits came through, this triggered a park proffer that Claude Moore was to give to the county. Initially, it was to build a rec center. The county decided, since they had just built a rec center up here, they didn't want a rec center in this location any longer. And then discussions occurred about the county wishing to place a miracle field, which is essentially a ball field that people in wheelchairs and those kids that were handicapped could use. And the idea was, do they put it here? They put it over by the elementary school across Moorview Parkway. And ultimately, what is being discussed right now, it's not finalized, but there is a plan for D3 that doesn't involve actually putting the miracle field here, because all of this would have to be paved over. You got to have like 85 parking spots or something like that, something crazy. That would take up too much space here. We think there's a preliminary understanding that they're going to build they want us to build it for them, which would change the proffer, but they know that we can do it faster, quicker, and better. To build this park here, which I'll show you an elevation and sort of a generalized plan that's not been fully approved, but it's being discussed. And I'll show you the plan over here as well. So the first slide, this is the proposed design of D3. There would be playground equipment on each of these circles. There'd be an open park with lots of trails and trees. There'd be 12 parking spaces. And this end of this parking space, you see this arrow, would connect to the commercial activity that would be down below. So this could give you a pretty good sense. It may not look exactly like this, but this would give you a pretty good idea of what's being contemplated to go in D3. And I would fully anticipate that within the next month or two, these things have to be priced out. We got to make sure that they're within budget for the money that we gave to the county. But if this works out, I would not be surprised to see this park in Moorefield being built by, mid next year. And across the street at the elementary school, this right here, the ADA field, is what they call a miracle field. You can research that or Google that. You'll see what those look like. They're very cool. There would be a playground here that would be constructed. This building would be knocked down and moved over here. And then they would add additional 55 parking spaces. So all of this construction would be part of or be paid for through the proffer money that we gave to the county. But it is bringing additional amenities where there were not any before. So I do think that that's actually pretty exciting. But let's move on to finances for a moment. Let me kind of go through this as I'll go through each line item sort of as quickly as I can, try to give it as much attention or not attention as it deserves. Um, the amount of money from toll, remember, we get $1,000 per home sold as part of our long-term reserve money for the Conservancy. The amount that we expect or toll expects to sell next year is probably 67 homes. This is a rough estimate. So we're counting on, we're just going off the estimate they gave us. So we're counting $67,000 for that. The amount of the single family assessments, this goes up each month as one of these homes is sold. But right now we're using the numbers that we know. Same with the condo assessments, the commercial assessments from the apartment buildings, TGM, and then interest. Now, one thing that we benefited from a lot last year was interest and investments. Currently the Conservancy is not allowed to invest in stocks; they're just too risky. But we are allowed to invest in bonds. So last year we were invested in bonds and mutual funds. And I can just tell you, unlike years past, last year we averaged about 5% on all of those investments, which actually this is a conservative number, this interest number. This number may wind up being bigger than this. I just didn't want to inflate the total. I'd rather underestimate how much interest we're going to get rather than overestimate how much interest we're going to get. But this line item is looking pretty good for next year right now, because as long as interest rates stay fairly high, we're in pretty good shape. Now, management fees, this is the money that goes to First Service. That's the fees that they charge. So we're including that. Insurance went up slightly, but not by a lot. Legal, we're for now keeping the amount the same. That could fluctuate depending upon what happens. I know when Avinton finishes their projects, they'll have agreements and things that our attorney may need to revise. Anytime we have any sort of, and also with E2D6, if they have an HOA that they start, we need to make sure that meshes with the covenants of the Conservancy, and Will Walsh takes care of that for us, helps us with that. Tax prep is about the same as it was last year. Engineer consulting, we are going to want to spend money with Dewberry to look through or look over or do a final walkthrough on the trails and the park to make sure we don't have dead trees or holes in the trails that need to be fixed before we take it over. We need to have money for that. Website is about the same as it was last year. That costs us about $150 to maintain per month. And then if we want to make serious changes to the website, they charge us fees on top of that. This should take care of that. Miscellaneous admin, I throw that in there just in case any of these numbers wind up being a little bit low for the year. Landscaping, this number, we came close to it this year. Maybe we were a little bit under it, but we're not taking care of the park and we're not taking care of the trails yet. So I kept this number a little bit high for that reason. And hopefully we can stay around that number. Common area maintenance, same sort of thing. Ponds, lake maintenance. This helps pays for things like exceptional wildlife that comes out and traps beavers, but also gets rid of geese. They have dogs that roam around the ponds to get rid of geese and make sure they don't set up shop and poop all over the place. Now this one's different. This I added this year, this tree planting. Around Lennar, where the trail runs closest to the Lennar properties that can basically be seen by Loudoun County Parkway, there are some areas that don't have trees between Loudoun County Parkway and the Lennar, back of the Lennar townhomes. And we've talked about this for a year or two about the fact that we ought to kind of bridge that gap and make sure there's kind of a barrier between Loudoun County Parkway and the townhomes closest to the back of the trail. So this amount right here, this $15,000, is kind of a start towards filling in gaps in that barrier. Because if you walk that trail, you can hear the cars and they can see the back of these townhomes. And we think that that's something that we can probably rectify with planting, 10 trees in the right spots. So anyway, that's what this is for. Snow removal last year, you'll probably recall we had 2 snowstorms about 48 hours apart, each one of which threw out about an inch of snow. It wasn't a lot, maybe an inch and a half. And that cost us about $16,000 to get rid of, to salt and remove. So I upped this number just a little bit, but I am hopeful that we can stay within it this year. The activities budget we kept over and it remained the same. We're pretty happy with the way this is working. We've contacted all the HOA managers and asked us if they have plans to contact us and let us know what they are, because we're happy to give them money to sponsor things like parties, decorations, things that make Moorefield a fun and cool place to live. The sidewalk walk reserves, I actually lowered this year because we're way over what we're required to reserve on the sidewalk budget already. We started off at like 50 some $1,000s. We're like at 110 now. And that's a lot more than we need. So I've cut this down and put the rest of the reserves in other locations, replacement reserves and general operating contingency fund. So I've talked a lot about the finances. As you can see, we've tried real hard to make sure that these numbers balance, that we don't go over budget, which we've been able to stay within and under actually the last several years. So let me just ask of the directors, does anybody have any questions with regard to this proposed operating budget for 2025?
I do not. I think it was put together very well.
Okay. Very good. Well, hearing nothing else, do I have a motion to approve the 2025 budget?
Motion to approve the 2025 budget.
Very good. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed? Okay. The motion carries. We have a budget going forward in 2025. Okay, good. Very good. All right. Now, before we get to questions and answers, we do have a category in our agenda for sub-association reports. Now, this is an opportunity for anyone who is a builder or HOA manager by chance to ask a question or propose a question through the chat if you would like. I'm going to stop sharing this for a moment. Let me just check the chat room for a minute. Let me just look and see what's in here. Jack, did anything jump out at you in the chat room?
I think, I don't know if you want to address we have some homeowner items on the chat room, nothing from the directors. As I was listening to you, I understood this part to be for the directors to provide the reports and provide comments.
Yeah.
I was hoping that we would answer all the other comments at the end of the meeting.
Yeah. Well, and again, right now, what's on the table is any questions from HOA managers or any of the directors. If any of the HOA managers would like to speak, I can unmute you if you have something to say in the way of a report, maybe perhaps something that you have planned that we've not been discussing, or something that you think the rest of us should be aware of. If so, you could raise your hand or whatever, send me a quick signal, and I'll be happy to unmute you. One other thing that I will mention, just and this probably applies to Westmore more than anywhere else. We have spent some money this year trying to get rid of beavers that are in Lake Wilson. They've done some damage to several trees. We've had the fella over at Exceptional Wildlife come out twice and try to capture them twice. Now, last year, a little over a year ago, he caught 2 beavers. This year, he's trapped twice and hasn't caught any. So what we did was we entered into a contract with him for him to come. It's basically like once or twice a quarter, just to walk around the lake and to check for any beaver activity, because several times we've had to clean out the low flow orifice, because when they tear down trees, they usually try to plug it up because that's their dam. It's just natural. It's what they do. But usually when we see that, there's an indication that they're active again. And when he's gone out and tried to trap, he's come away saying they don't appear to be here now. Doesn't mean that they didn't get chased away for some reason and won't come back and try to make this their home again. but we're sensitive to that because we don't like losing trees. Even though some of them are county trees, we try to keep that area up and make it look good. I know Westmore, I've heard, is having people put things around the trunk of a couple of your like sycamore trees to try to prevent any further damage being done. I applaud that. We stand ready to work with you to try to make sure that beaver activity there is controlled and hopefully eliminated, because we don't want to see good trees, especially mature trees, killed and taken down. We've had to have HLS come haul away probably at least two or three over the course of the year. And we don't like to see that. It's costly and it doesn't make the place look good when that's happening. So anyway, that's all I've got in that regard. I don't see anybody sort of raising
Mark,
their hand. Yes.
Suzanne from Westmore put a question or a statement on the chat for the record. The request for trash pad waste stations along the trails will be considered once the trails are conveyed.
And I agree with that, Suzanne, 100%. That is our plan, but I can't do it until the trails come into the Conservancy's possession, unfortunately. That's just something that Toll's not going to do until they're gonna give them to us, and that has always been high on our list of things to do. I know that you have overflowing pet waste stations, and we look to help eliminate that problem or at least alleviate it once we have the opportunity. But until we have possession of the trails, I can't just go installing trash cans along them and that and so forth. But I assure you, it has been talked about. We've had thoughts about that, and it is something that we're certainly interested in doing once we have the opportunity to do it. Okay. Mark Coletta, you indicated that you had a question. What would
Yeah.
that be?
Hey, Mark. Good afternoon. Earlier in your presentation, you showed a rendering of a Sunoco gas station. Is that the same as the Dash Inn, or is that different?
No, that's different. That's an Oslo property. Oslo is the group that bought a Tapco's commercial property that is just south. That Sunoco station's proposed to be just south of where the Harris Teeter, the sort of abandoned Harris Teeter location is. So it's west. It's a fair distance west of Moorefield proper right now.
Yep. Got it. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah,
Appreciate
no
it.
problem. No problem. Let me look through the chat room here and see if there's anything else. I see we have a question about the Golden to Mars potential transmission line. Let me tell you a little bit about what the Conservancy's done in that regard. We don't want the power lines going through Moorefield. We think that's a huge mistake in a lot of different respects, and we don't want it going by the townhomes in Moorefield either, or even across the street in Loudon Valley Estates. So I've reached out to all of our HOAs. I think every single one of them has had meetings on this. Every single one of them, to my knowledge, has circulated a petition to prevent that from happening that was presented to Sylvia Glass. We've spoken to Sylvia Glass. Now, I've also spoken to Loudon Valley Estates, not our property, but it's across the street. They are doing the exact same thing. They are contacting their supervisor. They are circulating petitions. They've got a lot more residents than we do, and they're circulating petitions and they're presenting them to their supervisor. So there is a movement underway, if you will, to get loud enough to catch Dominion's attention and to encourage them to put the location of the power lines elsewhere. If you go to Dominion and you look at the Golden to Mars locations, there are like three options, one of which is to bury the lines. And I know they did a study on that, and the study came back as kind of prohibitively expensive, not too big of a surprise. Then there's the location that runs by Moorefield, which is the first plan one, if you will, I think. And then plan two which we think is much more realistic, has the power lines running right next to existing power lines. And the only things that would really be inconveniences, they'd have to take out probably 20, 30 feet of trees, but there's no homes right next to it. It would run, that line would run approximately 100, 150 yards, maybe 200 yards from a school. They'd have to kind of go around the school. But other than that, you're not going to inconvenience the residents. You're not going to mess up the look of Moorefield. And I don't think you're going to turn off anybody from wanting to set up shop either commercially or residentially in Moorefield. So that's what we've done. Hopefully that answers your questions. Let's see. We talked about the tree planting, and yeah, the tree planting is not going to be affected whether the power lines come or not. That's not going to be affected by what we do. Let me just read some more of these.
Mark,
The new trail along Loudoun
Mark,
County Parkway. Yes.
forgive me. There were some older questions in the chat, so let me start from the top.
Okay.
And the first question was from Roger is, will the residents be able to access and pull down these docs for reference after the meeting?
And the answer to that is yes. We have the Moorefield Conservancy website, and we will post both the PowerPoint presentation as well as the recording that we're doing currently. So we'll put both of them on the website. So if you want to look at them later, you can. If you want to have family members that couldn't make the meeting look at them, then that'll be available to you too.
And I posted the website on the chat. The second question was from David, and it's all the way at the very top, and is, will people in the apartments being built also pay into the assessments? I believe you've addressed that in a subsequent slide after he asked it, but if you want to.
Yeah, let me tell you the way the structure of assessments right now is as follows. It's $10 per door per month for townhomes, $5 a door per month for condominiums, and $2.50 per door per month for each apartment in an apartment complex. So yes, the answer is yes, but it will be built into the rent that is charged by the apartment builder. So the residents themselves probably won't recognize that they are paying something to the Conservancy each month for being there, but it will be built into their rent, and they will be, whether they realize it or not.
Okay, thank you. And I think you've got the others. Those are two that were earlier comments that you weren't reading through. You can probably go down your list.
I did see, David also asked this question. Is there anything information you could provide on the types of commercial entities you're speaking to or interested in speaking here, for example, supermarkets, restaurants, or other retail businesses? All I can say to that is yes, yes, and yes. We'd like to see all three of those here. I can't get into specifics. All I can tell you as to who we're talking to right now, because nothing is finalized, and I don't want to mention any sort of supermarket chain, restaurant chain, or retail business, only to find out later on that couldn't get worked out. So I'm not going to get into those specifics other than to tell you that we will have a say in what comes to Moorefield, and it won't be anything but quality. That I can tell you and assure you for 100%. And the people that we're talking to that are residential, commercial, that are in the business of building commercial in Northern Virginia are some of the best around, and they do not have cheap businesses in their entities. They only have very, very high quality businesses in their entities. So that's about as much as I could tell you on that for the moment. Let's look here. I'm just looking through the rest of the list here, Jack. Can we request, Baruch asked, can we request that more trees are planted to separate the trail from Loudoun County Parkway? I think I addressed that. It kind of depends on where you are. It is something we're interested in exploring. Where exactly they will be, how tall these trees will get, that remains to be seen. But we have set aside $15,000 for that very idea, that very issue. I'm guessing you live in the Lennar Lennar condominiums there, because those are the ones that back up to Loudoun County Parkway. But it is something that has occurred to us as we walk the property, and it's something we're interested in doing. All right, Jack, I see. What is this that you've attached to the chat room there?
That's the Moorefield Conservancy website
Oh,
where
okay.
documents will be posted.
Very good. Very good. All right. If anybody else has any questions that they want to take up, please post them in the chat room now, and I'll give you a minute or two. And then I'll just say while we're waiting, we'll kind of sum up. We're very excited with what's going on in Moorefield right now. I think you can tell just by contrasting what we've gone over with last year. We've got a lot of balls in the air right now. We've got a lot of different projects that are proceeding in Moorefield. Jack is never stops answering his phone or taking the rest of our questions with regard to what can go where and how quickly it can be built and what we can fit in what portion of Moorefield and what doesn't work for a variety of different reasons. So that part of it is good. I would say if you're a resident of Moorefield, this is going to continue to get, there's going to continue to be activity coming, whether it's high-rise apartment complexes, whether it's commercial activity that will eventually come here. There are going to be changes in Moorefield, but the other nice part about it is there are going to be parks that are being built as well. There are areas of Moorefield that are not going to be developed so that no one feels like they're in, a megatropolis immediately. There are still going to be areas, there are going to be pocket parks and all kinds of other things that are going to be placed in Moorefield that should have everybody should be happy about that. All right, Felipe, let me read your question here. Does the Conservancy have a vision for the area? Well, the vision is somewhat dependent, Felipe, on the folks that come to us with plans to build in Moorefield. What I can tell you is we don't do any deals with anybody until they're vetted and until, aside from contracts and money and all that other sort of stuff, they have to bring something to Moorefield that we think will add to what we've got and make life better for everybody. You've asked a subsequent question: do you feel Sylvia is providing necessary support? Yes. I mean, I do think that she is open to anything that has been suggested by either the residents or by the Conservancy or by the foundation, for that matter. Again, she's one of a number of 9 supervisors because, she can agree with us 100%. It doesn't necessarily mean all the other supervisors are going to, because they obviously represent different parts of the county. But in general terms, I would say yes. I do think that she's generally supportive of anything that we've brought to her attention. I'm not exactly sure, Felipe, what you mean about are there 3 opposition forces. I don't exactly know what that means. Data centers, you mentioned that. We're not putting data centers in Moorefield. So rest assured, that's just something we've decided long ago that we're not. So that's the answer to that question. As far as One Loudoun goes, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. But we're not One Loudoun. We would like to get commercial here, and I think it will come. But that's about all I can say on that topic. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, I know, Felipe, I know you keep asking questions about there's a dispersion of investment between the 2 areas, among the 2 areas. I think you're referring to One Loudoun. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, but you're welcome to email me directly after this meeting if you have further questions on that. I don't know that I can answer what you're getting at definitively, and we won't be able to until we know definitively what commercial developers want to bring to Moorefield. All I can tell you is they won't bring anything that we don't give them a green light to bring. That's what I can tell you, because that I know for sure. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question, Felipe. And if it doesn't, please feel free to email me or give me a call. Does anybody else have any questions? No? All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for showing up. I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate hearing from all of you during the year, too, when things happen, when things are going to happen. We like to kind of keep our fingers on the pulse out in Moorefield and try to kind of stay ahead of events as they are coming. We like to try to convey to the HOA managers, which is the quickest way to get the word out to everybody, things that we know of that are coming to Moorefield. But this meeting every year is our one real opportunity to speak directly, not just to the HOA managers and our directors, other directors, but also to any of the residents that are interested in hearing what's gone on during the year and what potentially is coming the next year. Now, I will tell you, a lot of these things that you heard about this year, we didn't know would happen last year. I told you about those things that we did know were occurring, and more things than that have occurred. So I suspect next year probably won't be too different. I suspect you're going to see some more things happen next year that we probably couldn't predict at this time this year. But we'll update you next year when the time comes with regard to that. Other than that, I wish you all the best. Happy Friday, and we'll look forward to seeing you next year. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.